All right, folks, thanks again for tuning in today. I'm excited. A good buddy of mine, Josh, is here. And Josh, I think that everybody out there listening today is going to get really two benefits from you. And again, a lot of times when we're talking to these business owners, we can lean in one direction or the other. But for you, I think that you have a phenomenal story because you have two sides to the story. The first side that I really want to talk about and dig deep in is, and again, this is something that I know that you get your most views on. So many people are reaching out to you. It's very simple, and we'll talk about your business here in a second, but I want everybody to sit up and listen really quick that's listening. And how do we outsmart, right? You know where I'm going with this. How do we outsmart our car salesman or saleswoman when we're going to negotiate to buy a car? Because I know part of your business is to be able to train these folks. So how do we as a consumer, so for those of you that buy cars, you're like myself, we all drive a car. It comes from somewhere, right? We got to buy it from someone. How do we as a buyer have a leg up with everybody?
So first off, I'll tell you, the automobile industry, and we did it to ourselves through multiple generations, tarnished our name, right? I mean, they took advantage of people, they swindled people. So it takes more than a few years to get back on track. But I will tell you, the last 20 years in the automobile industry has changed dramatically. It started with, let's just go back 50 years ago. If you wanted any information, the dealership had it, right? If you wanted to know what your trade was worth, the dealership had that information. You may think you know, but the dealership knew. If you wanted to know what interest rates were, you had to go to the dealership. If you wanted to know the new features on the car, you had to go to the dealership. Now the average consumer spends 19 hours online, and the average consumer now visits 1.2 stores. So that's it. So you used to visit 4 or 5 stores. You'd go to Auto Mile, wherever that was in your town, and you'd hit up 4 or 5 stores. And as a car salesman, you hope that you got them last. Because if you got them first and they still had to visit 4 or 5 stores, it was a pain in the butt. You had to apply high pressure. You had to try and keep them there all day. Oh, I can't find your keys. All sorts of crazy stuff.
Sure.
Those stories, there are probably some truth to them, unfortunately. So the big thing that I would tell people is most dealerships are really on the up and up these days. It's not tricky, that sort of thing. The internet has pretty much put a squash to all of that. Obviously, you can check online reviews, that sort of thing. The big thing that I tell people is when you go into a dealership, if you don't feel comfortable, leave. Just leave. If you don't feel like you're comfortable with this salesman or this, the way it processed, the way that they're doing it, just leave. Don't even try and push yourself through that process. But some tips to make sure that you don't get taken advantage of is number one, I would figure out what your interest rate is. So now you can go to your local bank. Obviously, most everybody has a credit union. Figure out what those interest rates are, and feel free to let the dealership capture your financing as long as they can at least meet or beat that interest rate.
Okay.
Sometimes the banks, and I'll tell you, the dealerships don't make a bunch of money off the financing, but usually if they can send a contract with somebody that has good credit to one of their banks, they'll throw them $200-$300, something like that. So it's not huge, but it can be a little incentive for that dealership.
A couple extra bucks, sure.
But figure out where that rate is and let them know if you can meet it or beat it.
Go ahead.
If we can meet it or beat it, then we'll go ahead and go with you. If not, then I'll go to my local credit union.
Okay.
Figure out what your trade-in's worth through kbb.com. Super easy to do. And there's actually 2 features on kbb.com. One is what KBB says that it's worth, and then KBB will actually buy your car now, and they send you through a dealership to buy it, but they'll give you a number that, hey, I'll actually buy your car at this number. It's usually a little lower than the average KBB number, but what anything in this world is worth is what somebody will actually pay you for it. Not what some printout says, like when you go to get your wife's wedding ring appraised, the appraiser says it's worth twice what you paid for it, but nobody's going to pay you that for it. The insurance company isn't going to pay you that for it.
Okay.
So that gives you a really good idea. Now things can change obviously with condition of the car and that sort of thing, but it gives you a really good idea. And then you can figure out what invoice is on the car. There's multiple websites to figure that out. And then you can also figure out what the incentives are by going to the manufacturer's website. So once you've got all that information, you're really armed and dangerous. And that fits for a new car.
You're an educated buyer at this point, right?
Yep. And there's in Denver, Colorado, which is where I'm from, there's 10 or 11 Chevy stores in Denver. Pretty much anybody, as long as you give them a fair offer, which, on a new car, pretty much anybody would sell that car at or around invoice. Because they get some money back from the manufacturer, that sort of thing. And you're saying, hey, I think my trade's worth about this. My interest rate should be this. I'm comfortable putting this money down, and you can even figure out what your payments are on some sort of, you can use a mortgage calculator, whatever, online to figure out a loan calculator to figure out what your payments are. That way, you're not shocked when you go, hey, I want $5,000 for my trade. I want to pay $20,000 for your car, and I want a $100 payment. Well, the math doesn't work there. So you can educate yourself and go in and really minimize that process, that lengthy negotiation process, and just be upfront and honest and be nice. I see a lot of people go into the dealerships these days and they've got that wall up, their chest is bowed out, and
they're
they
like, I'm going to beat them. I'm going to beat them before they beat me.
And it makes the process worse. If you go in with a smile on your face, and remember, if they're not receptive to this, just leave. But if you go in with a smile on your face, you've probably picked out the car. You might even have the stock number. Here's the one I want to look at. You're making their job super easy. And you go, here's the one I want to look at. You drive it. Yep, this is the one. You sit down and you go, hey, I think my trade's worth about this. Rather than them telling you, hey, I think my trade's worth about this. I think your car's worth about this. I want to put X amount down, and my payment should be about this in 72 months. Let your manager know if he can do it.
If he can beat it.
Yep, absolutely. And then just go from there. But the key is, have a smile on your face, be nice, be friendly. Really don't beat them up, because that's when, as soon as you start to punch somebody, what happens?
Right.
They punch back, right? And it just becomes confrontational. And any negotiation, no matter which side of the table you're on, you do not want to be confrontational. It's one of the things I teach my salespeople is, if a salesperson does that, you don't want to be confrontational back to them. Not everybody's good at it, but you don't want to be confrontational back to them, because then it's not a negotiation, it's a confrontation. We don't want to get into that.
Absolutely understand that. So I want to go back to one of the first things that you said is the automotive dealership business has changed so much.
Yeah.
And I think that a majority of, and you may agree or disagree, but a majority of them are on the up and up right now, because they know, I would like to use the word transparent. They have to be, because if they're not at my fingertips, I have a phone, I could get so
100%.
many prices.
Yep.
Now, how accurate they are, that's up for discussion. But I always say, be an educated buyer. I mean, be educated in anything you do. In our industry, it's the more education you have, the more informed of a decision you're going to make, right? So, are you going to listen to 1.2 dealerships like it is now? You're going to walk essentially into one dealership and take them at their word, or are you going to do your due diligence before you walk in and go and because you don't have to go to 4 different Chevy dealerships.
There's no need for it,
right? You can go into one, know what you're going to get, and you walk out. So when you start to talk about that, what do you see as really the way that the automotive industry, you've seen so many changes over your lifetime. Where do you see those changes taking the buyers? Let's stay on the buyer side. Where do you see
it's super cool.
that going?
It's really exciting. I think, when did Al Gore invent the internet?
Yeah.
97, somewhere. So when he invented the internet, things changed, right? It changed from, Amazon, just look at everything. It's all changed. And some car dealers fought it, right? And they're the blockbusters. And then some car dealers embraced it. So really what I see, and this transition's happened, and it's happened rapidly, but people are visiting fewer dealerships to the point where people are not even visiting a dealership. And there are some dealerships out there, new and used actually, some big used car companies that are making the process 100% seamless, where you don't even have to go into the store. You input your trade information online, you input your credit information online, they deliver the car to you. If you have a trade, they pick your trade back up and they take it. So I don't know what the take rate will ultimately be on that, because some people, especially on a pre-owned car, you want to look at, see it, smell it, drive it. But on a new car, a new car is a new car. Is there any reason to do that? Yeah. And people are more and more comfortable, Amazon, buying things online now without ever seeing them. I never thought people would buy shoes online, but they do. That was always one of our things. You got to try a pair of shoes on before you buy it. Well, not so much. So, and a lot of these companies have 3-day or 7-day return policies to kind of put you at ease. But that's where the transition's going, is where you don't even have to talk to a salesman. You don't even have to go into a dealership anymore.
Yeah,
you can do everything yourself. You can play with the calculator online. I want to put X down. I want to go 60 months. I want to go 66 months, whatever it is. Work your own deal entirely.
Wow.
And then the car shows up on your doorstep.
And so do you feel that that's more on the new car side then than it is on the used car? Just from that touch and feel?
What's interesting is currently right now, there's more used cars being sold that way than new.
Wow.
But really it's only because new cars have to go through a manufacturer. So there's some really forward-thinking people right now.
Okay, I see.
doing it on the used car side, and there are some new car side people not as forward thinking, but I think that'll switch here real soon, because, and if you think about it, like anything else, I mean, you can have a car to you in probably 2-3 days, depending geographically where you're at.
So is it, just from my lack of knowledge, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it, you can't buy a new car from anybody other than that registered and certified dealer, right? You can't go to to Big Al's used cars and buy the brand new Chevy Silverado truck.
No, it has to go through a Chevrolet store. There are brokers out there that can sell multiple lines, but newsflash to the people out there that use a broker, that broker buys it from a dealership, marks it up, and resells it to you. You can get a better deal through the dealership because they don't have to pay the broker.
There's no middle person.
But people use the broker because they don't want to hassle with the dealership. So that's where, and I'll tell you, it's even on most dealerships' websites now. I'd say 50% where you can do the entire process online. Wow. Never talk to anybody. It's pretty slick.
And even on the incentive side, so I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier on the incentives. How do we as a consumer pay attention to those incentives? Let's just say that, like, I'm in the market to get a new Chevy Silverado.
Yep.
Right? How, as a consumer, can I be informed that there's a good time or a bad time to buy a particular car, or is there?
So two different questions. From the incentive side, they do change, not dramatically though. I'll tell you, usually around the holiday weekends, Black Friday, that sort of thing. It used to be people would wait till the end they'd come to December, right? I want to wait till the end of the year to buy a car. Well, like right now, the 2020s are out right now. The 2019s will be gone in a couple months. There won't be anything left by December. So, and if there is, you run a risk of potentially missing out, or you could find something with really big incentives if it's the last one on the lot, but then you're picking the last one on the lot. It's just whatever's available.
You get what you
right?
get.
So you give up some of that availability.
Okay.
But I would generally say, if you want the best deal out there, stick to the Labor Day, Memorial, Black Friday, some of those big holiday weekends. But it's not generally super dramatic, like it's $10,000 less than it would be a month later. There might be a $500 incentive or $1,000 incentive. So to kind of answer that incentive question, and time of the year, time of the month.
So that, that's a big one. And again, this is the stereotype that's in my head.
Yep.
You want to go in at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Because again, the salesman or even the dealership has got a quota to meet. And if it's 50 cars and I'm number 49 walking through the door, he's more likely to cut a deal with me because he's got to get the 50. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, it is. And depending on the store and the manufacturer. So, Chevrolet, for example, they'll put a number out on, say, Silverados for the month. Well, if you're in the market for a Tahoe, may or may not be an advantage to you. If you're in the market for a Silverado, and you have no way of knowing this as a consumer. You have no way of knowing
if he's at this number.
Yeah, absolutely no way of knowing it as a consumer. So there is a little bit of truth to that. If a sales guy's really trying to hit his bonus, that doesn't affect the dealership so much, but he may work a little harder trying to get you a better deal at the end of the month if he's trying to hit his bonus. But I don't think it's anything dramatic.
Can the sales guy give up some of his commission, if you will, to make the deal for you?
No, not generally speaking, but he's a human, right? He's a human being. The sales manager is a human being. And if that salesman is up to the sales manager and goes, "Hey boss, I need this deal for my bonus," he can persuade the sales manager a little bit too.
Okay. To help out on the deal. Okay. So we're out there looking for, is there tricks of the trade that you would give? Because again, you're well versed on both sides of this. Let's talk about used cars for a minute.
Yeah.
So if I'm out there looking for a used car, what am I looking for? And then what should I stay away from?
Yeah, so I strongly recommend certified pre-owned, and the certified word has gotten thrown around a lot out there. You can only buy a certified Chevrolet from a Chevrolet store. You can only buy a certified Audi from an Audi store. If Al's Used Cars says I have a certified Audi, it's Al certified. We don't know what that is. It may be good, it may not be good. But then the nice thing with the used car piece is when you're searching for a car, again now with the internet, whether you're using cars.com or Edmunds or Auto Trader, you can find your perfect car. So if you were waiting for that 1 year that Audi made a purple car with white leather interior, you can dial all the way down and find that car.
Yeah, and your filters.
Yeah,
right?
so you just may be giving up where you're buying it from. If you're buying an Audi from an Audi store, their inspection process is probably going to be a little tighter than if you're buying an Audi from a non-Audi store, new or used. They know what to look for. If Chevrolet's an oil pan leak on this model car, the Chevrolet guys doing the reconditioning, they know that. So they're going to look for it and go, oh yeah, this has that particular known problem, so to speak. So there might be a little bit of of ease doing it that way. But even then, I've bought non-certified manufacturer certified cars from other dealerships.
Would you recommend that we have it as, again, I'm talking to myself, I'm a car buyer. I found the perfect car. I'm in Michigan, and it's in your hometown there in Colorado. And I'm not going to fly out there and get under the hood and check it. Even if I did, I wouldn't know what I'm looking for. Is it recommended if I'm buying it from a used car lot, non-quote-unquote certified, and let's just say, again, it's a Chevy Silverado, right? Would you recommend that I have the local Chevy dealership take a sneak peek at it? I'm going to have to pay for that. I know that. But again, I'm willing to invest a couple $100, knowing that when this car gets shipped to my house in Michigan, it's in the right shape. Because
depends on the car, right? So if we're looking at a car with 10,000 miles on it, who cares? Because it's all covered under factory warranty anyway.
Okay.
You're looking at a car that's just outside the manufacturer warranty, it might be a good idea. If you're looking at a 150,000 mile car, it might be a really good idea to have at least somebody take a peek at it. But it just depends on.
How do we know if our car is in factory warranty?
You can get all that information online. Most manufacturers are 3 years, 36,000 miles.
Okay.
For the bumper to bumper portion, a lot of them have powertrains that are different. There are a few manufacturers that go 4 years, 48,000 miles, but you can get all that from the manufacturer website.
Okay.
Google will get it all for you.
Dr. Google, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting stuff, because you're looking for, I don't want to call it a unicorn, but you're looking for the car that you want.
You want the car, and now you can get it. It used to be
that's the thing.
You'd hit 10 stores, you couldn't find it, and you're going, shoot, I got to compromise now, because there was no way to look at a car in Denver if you lived in Michigan.
Or even if you found it, you're like, great, I found it, but I can't get it.
Yeah. Now what do I do?
Here's a cool story. My senior year of high school, a buddy of mine drove from Michigan to Texas to get a car I found online.
Yeah.
But it didn't click to me for whatever reason, and so we drove that car back all the way from Texas, from Detroit, because I found the car that I wanted. It's nowhere near around here.
Yeah.
I mean, now you can ship them. It's a lot more reasonable, and you have the resources is a little bit different now. What advice would you give somebody that's out there that's maybe going to buy something out of state? Would you recommend that they go look at it or ship it? Are they okay? Does it depend?
So I'd look at the dealer reviews first off.
Okay,
great spot. If they've got terrible reviews, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Okay.
If they're a 4.8 star, and remember the complainers always come out, so there's always negative ones. But if they're a 4.8 star or even a 4.2 star, just take all that into consideration. Take the car into consideration. I'm buying a 10,000 mile Tahoe. Okay. If I'm buying a 56,000 mile Tahoe, hey, I might want to have somebody take a look at that. But I would be 1,000% okay buying a car without seeing it. Most of the pictures online are incredible. You get a really good job. And if you have any questions, ask that salesperson, hey, would you do me a favor? Do a walk around video on that. Take some more pictures up close and just get as much information as you can. I promise you they'll do it. And then a lot of times now, shipping is going to cost you less than an airplane ticket and gas and time.
And time, and how about the miles?
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. I mean, I drove
some extra miles on it.
There's a lot of miles, so now all of a sudden your car's got an extra 1,000 miles by the time you get back home.
So the shipping's gotten super easy. So as a consumer, I would not be scared at all to buy almost anything online and have it shipped to me.
What about new? I mean, again, it sounds like it's pretty standard pricing across the board. Is one dealership? No, it's not. All right, he's shaking his head, folks. It's not. Tell me what's the difference. So I want to go buy a new car. How do I find the best deal on the new car?
Yeah. So in every dealership's unique. The manufacturer doesn't state the way you have to do business. Saturn was a non-negotiating product. They're gone. But
do you think that had a piece to do with their demise?
Well, yeah, it could be, right? Because consumers, they like negotiating. They want to feel like they got a good deal.
We want a deal.
So some manufacturers, if you look on their website, you'll see how they price. Some price at MSRP, and that's just what they put out there on the internet, right? Nothing wrong with that. They take the incentives off, etc. You'll buy it less than that, but that's how they advertise. Some stores will advertise a pre-discounted price. And if you're looking at it online and you go, hey, they're selling that car at invoice online, which a lot of dealers do, or $100 over or something like that, you can go with, hey, here's my invoice that I got from Edmunds, and here's what Chevrolet says the incentives are. That's a pretty good deal. You can do it that way, and just no negotiation, no hassle. But again, if you find the right car at a different store, you can call them up and say, hey, I want to give you this as an offer because I think that's a fair deal. And a lot of them will, they may try and bump you up a little bit or whatever, but at the end of the day, if it's a fair offer, they're going to take a fair offer.
Okay. So fair offer is.
But every
looking at-
dealership's unique,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So looking at MSRP, to educate myself, using an MSRP minus incentives, I should be paying somewhere around that price.
No, MSRP would be the sticker price.
Okay.
So what you'll do is you'll find out what invoice is, and again, there's 100 websites that can get you this information. But invoice is what the dealership pays for it. It's not 100% accurate what their net cost is, but that's essentially what they pay for it. There's things that get taken out. MSRP would be the top price, the one that's on the window sticker.
Okay.
The delta is their profit. Now they have enough profit built into the back end where if they sold every car at invoice, they'd be fine. But it's interesting because a lot of people think that these new cars, and even the used cars too, have $5,000 of markup in them. They just don't, especially the imports. Like a Chevy Cruze, a small little car, from invoice to MSRP, probably $400 markup. Wow. So there's really not a lot of markup.
Not a lot of wiggle room there.
No, there's really not. Which is unfortunate for us because when we say, hey, I'm taking $200 off, we're giving you a good deal, but the consumer goes, it's $200. What are you talking
50%,
about? 50%,
right? I mean, when you look at those things. Do you see then, and obviously I think that this is common sense, but I'd like to confirm, the more the car is, the more that there is a quote unquote wiggle room.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you can look at it in percentages, 50% is 50%, right?
Yeah. The more expensive cars, the high-line cars, you get up in $150,000 Porsches, and they may have 10 grand markup, something like that. And obviously the lesser, Honda Civic base model, same thing, may have $250, $350 in markup in it. It's really minimal. So, but you'll figure that out as you're doing your research. Again, just becoming an educated buyer, and you'll know, hey, you know what? I think I should offer this, and I think that's a fair deal.
So for those of you out there looking at again, new or used, Josh, phenomenal. I don't want to call them, insider tips, but I mean, just be able to hear it right from your mouth with non-biased, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, we don't work for a dealership. You're not out there selling cars or anything like that. So as we kind of look at this big picture stuff, where do you see the auto? I don't want to say the auto industry because let's take a step back. Where do you see the dealership industry and the sale of the vehicle to me, the consumer? Where do you see the future of that going?
I see more salaried, less commission, and there's some hybrid ways to do it. I've paid salespeople hourly before with no commission. I paid them salary with no commission. I paid them per unit rather than some sort of percentage of the profit because salesperson doesn't really control the profit. So I see some sort of salary or hybrid for two reasons. Number one, because it's difficult as a dealership to project your profit. Because the manufacturer has some back-end money, some targets, some bogeys, some bonuses that you have to hit that doesn't affect the salesperson, but financially affects the dealership. And also, it's harder to attract that younger salesperson who you tell them, hey, you're going to make X amount percentage commission and figure it out. So they're going, no, I don't think I want to.
Right.
I want something that's a little more steady.
Everybody wants guaranteed money, right?
Yeah. So I see that salary or some sort of hybrid going into that salesperson.
And we talked about this earlier. You see more online, obviously. I mean, we talked about it. Everything's kind of going in that direction. I mean, do you ever see it to a point where we're 100% buying cars online?
No, I don't. And Tesla floated that idea for a little bit. Was going to close all of his stores. Elon Musk was everything online. I think that lasted about a month, and then he said, "Well, we're going to keep some stores open." And if any manufacturer was going to do that, it would be Tesla, and he even walked that back. There's a lot of people out there that still want to see it, touch it, feel it, smell it, new or used. So if you went 100% online, no brick and mortar stores, I don't think that would work. I think some people still want to see the cars.
What's your thought? I mean, you bring up a great topic. Tell me what are your thoughts on this electric vehicle movement? You mentioned the word Tesla. There's a lot of other companies coming in that space. What's that look like to you?
It's interesting. It would take, I think I did some research on this. It's essentially less than 1% of the market share right now. And with the amount of cars that are out on the road, I think it would take 50 years of 100% market share to get rid of all the...
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not our lifetime or your kid's lifetime. But clearly it's gaining some traction. The problem that I have is the demand is low from a percentage standpoint, right? The electric heads are like, oh yeah, they think everybody wants and drives an electric. But 99% of the people out there don't. And when the government puts their incentives out there, whether it's $9,000 tax write-off from the feds or some, Colorado right now is a $5,000 incentive. When they start incentivizing the consumers to do things that they don't necessarily want to do, it's false demand. So the demand is probably even lower than what it really is right now, because there's all this financial incentive from the government.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when the government peels that back. If the demand goes to 5%, say, of the market,
yeah, that was
they're not going to be able to afford
that. That was like what was it in the was it the solar panels, right? When
Yeah,
those came out,
same
right? It was
concept.
like, we'll give you money, and then they kind of started to peel that back, and then it kind of plateaued a little
same
bit.
concept.
So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about your successes, because I know you are doing a phenomenal job of really reviving an industry that needs reviving, because everything that I've seen out there is what we just got done talking about. It's all old. It's all if we want to talk about the internet, this was pre-internet. This was, hey, do you have a cassette tape, right? Do you have a VHS deal?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you want to talk about things changing.
Cars don't even have CD players anymore.
They don't. No, I mean, talking about, literally cassette. So a lot of the training stuff that's out there for people that are trying to master their craft in the sales industry, if you will, you're changing that right now, because you're crushing it on social media, but all of your models and everything that you're building right now is I guess you want to say, I can impact and I can make that decision based off of today's environment, not 20 plus years ago. Talk to me about that change.
So there's a lot of trainers out there that have been doing the same thing for 25 years. And the problem is, asking a 25-year-old salesperson to do something that worked 25 years ago, they're going to go, I don't think so. Especially,
it's like oil and
I'm
water.
going into Apple now, right?
Gosh.
You take your phone. I don't even have to talk to an associate. I take my phone, open my Apple app, I scan my product, and I walk out the door. I almost feel like I'm shoplifting. But that's how Apple has changed the marketplace. So as an industry, if we force consumers to go through our process the way we want to do it, the consumer is going to find a different dealership that's going to do it their way. So there's, as a salesman, we can be educational, we can be their advisor, we can be all these things, but the control and the forcing people through the process, it's over and it's done. If you continue to do that, you're going to be Blockbuster. You're not going to be Netflix.
That's exactly it. I mean, if you're going off of those tactics of the high pressure of, you don't let them leave, and again, back when a majority of, because it is the sales. I think that the premise and the basics are still there, right? The foundation of the sales are still there, right? There's still the human interaction, but that changes everything if you don't do the back end. If you're saying, hey, I know we talked about this, Mr. Consumer. I know that you know what your interest rate is at your credit union. I know that you wanted a KBB. I know you know what your car is. So that same tactic of me trying to do this whole hoopla of give me your keys, I can't find them, and you're not leaving.
Well, think about this two ways, right? So you get two different salespeople with all of that. You walk in and see me, and I say, that interest rate's too low. There's no way they're going to give that for you. You don't qualify for it. KBB, they're never right on the trades, and that that invoice you brought in, that's not accurate. They raised invoice prices 6 months ago. You immediately have no trust with me. And as a salesperson, if I want to proceed down the sales process, I'm going to have a real difficult time. I mean, oil and water, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just told me that I'm dumb, I'm dumber, and then I don't know what I'm talking
exactly.
about.
Conversely, if I'm a salesperson and I go, hey, that's awesome. I'm so glad you did some research and got some information up front. Now let's go find your perfect car.
Yeah.
Because who cares about all that? Whether that information they got is right or wrong is absolutely indifferent. We can help educate and that sort of thing down the road if they potentially got something wrong in their evaluation or whatever.
If explained.
Exactly.
Right.
After I build rapport, after I build trust and go, hey, that's awesome. I'm super pumped that you did all that information. You're making my job pretty easy.
I was going to say, if you tell them that, they're smiling like, yes, they feel in the driver's seat, right?
You're in control. And that's the whole goal, is I want to make you feel in control. We're going to go out, we're going to find the perfect car of your dreams. I'm going to build some rapport with you as a salesperson because people buy from people they like. And then we're going to go inside, we're going to see if we can put the deal together. Okay. And you're going to listen to me more. Let's say you did make a mistake. And we just spent an hour on the lot driving the car, landing you on the perfect car as I found all your needs and your wants, what was really important to you as a consumer. I'm listening to you. I'm in tune with you. We sit down and we go, oh, that interest rate at your credit union, by the way, that's for 36 months.
Yes.
And you wanted to go 60. Matter of fact, here, let me pull it up on their website.
Yes.
And now you go, oh, whoops. Okay, well, what's the payment at 60?
Yeah. And their trust.
Rather than,
trust.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And you're putting your dukes up and, okay, let's go here.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that you've created. Right?
Yeah.
So walk us through kind of what the product is for those folks out there that are saying, okay, everything they're like me, they're like, everything you just said makes 100% sense. Things have changed. I don't want to be Blockbuster. I want to be more of the Amazon. Tell me kind of what your unique process is that sets you apart from everybody else trying to do
what I do?
Yeah.
So what I do is I have a sales training program, and I've converted everything to being online. People don't want to have a disruption in their day where you have a sales trainer come in, and from a dealership standpoint, you put everybody upstairs. Let's train for 3 or 4 hours. Your day's wasted. So everything is all online and all on demand. And that's kind of the way people want to do everything these days. I want to train when I want, how I want. Thinking about how do I do it the way the salesperson wants, just like the salesperson should be doing it the way the consumer wants.
Absolutely.
So I have an online portal. Everything's online. Obviously, we talk about some of the new stuff that I go over here, and then the dealerships can use it in a few different ways, and depending on the personality of the store. But it's all fresh and it's all online from an actual car guy. Some trainers out there aren't car guys and haven't been for a long time, or their content is just so old that it's just not relevant anymore. So that's probably the big difference.
Yeah, and we were talking about that earlier. I mean, it not only is it changing so quickly today, I mean, it's different a year ago.
Yeah, it's rapid.
Right?
I mean, it's
rapid changing. So, I mean, it's almost like if you're not in the digital space and you're not online, I mean, you can't send somebody out a new cassette tape, right? And say, hey, here's a new cassette tape that I updated from 30 years ago. It's just the new sales guy in your dealership is like, what even is this? I don't have anywhere to play it, right?
What do I do this?
So we're staying current. You're updating and you're constantly out there. And I mean, talk to me about your personal / professional, your social media presence, because that's phenomenal. I mean, not only is your portal, everything digital, everything's 21st century. Talk to me about your social media, the stuff that you're doing out there, because that is, I don't want to call it cutting edge, but it really is cutting edge. It's not ahead of its time. It's at its time in moving.
Yeah, so my thing was, how do I I go back to my consumer is the dealership and the salesperson, and how do I add value to them before I ask for the sale, just as you should do as a salesman. I'm going to add value to the consumer's life before I ask for the sale, because eventually I'm going to ask for the sale, and if I haven't added enough value, then I haven't earned the right to ask for the sale. So I do a video Monday through Friday, free, 100% free, on my Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and they're short videos, 2 minutes to maybe 5 minutes, something quick and actionable that a salesperson can use today to make themselves a better salesperson.
How do you make yourself better? So I mean, we're part of this group here, right? How do you make yourself better? I mean, give us the tricks of the trades for you. So
I kind of have, there's 3 things, right? You have to identify what you want first off. And that's the easy part. As most people can go, I want a 6-pack, right? That's what I want. But then you have to identify / make a plan. And then step 2 is you got to do it, right? You got to get off the couch. You got to set the Coors Light down. You got to go on a jog, right? And that's where a lot of people fall off. And then step 3, which is where whoever's left, 99% of those people fall off, is you got to do it every day. So you got to figure out what you want as a salesperson, and there's so many resources out there. If we're just talking about sales, you could use the same conversation for a marriage life, for business, for everything. There's so much a wealth of information and resources, but figure out what you want and make a plan, and then do it, every day. It's that consistency piece that most people give up. That's why most people can't do a diet, because they're like, oh yeah, I'm keto for a week, and then I'm gonna have the chocolate cake.
Right. And I'm going to cheat for this one day, and I'll go back to it tomorrow. Then you don't, and you don't have a plan, right? You don't know what tomorrow's going to hold.
That plan is so key, and I recommend writing it down so that you have something to look at and execute on, no matter what it is you're doing. But for my salespeople out there, figure out what it is that you need to do to be successful as a salesperson. How many people do I need to talk to, and back into everything.
Reverse engineering,
right?
100%. If I need to sell 30, I
got to make 100 phone calls. I got to talk to 10 people a day. I got to do this and that, and then every day when you're looking at it, if you don't hit that, now you know, okay, I'm a little behind. I need to double down tomorrow. And if you got a succession of days, then there's a problem. But I had one of my mentors used to always tell me, you can't run 5 miles a day and get fat. And so if you're constantly running 5 miles a day, you're not going to get fat. You may have a bad day. You may even have a bad week, but you're not going to have a bad year.
Right. Which is a very true story, right? So what would be one thing that you would say is a driven success factor? I know there's probably a lot of things, but I mean, look, you are light years ahead of everybody else that's doing what you're doing. What's your I call it your unique ability? What's separating you from everybody else?
That's trying to do what I do?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing is I was in the industry. I mean, I started selling cars at 18 years old. I worked 7 days a week for 10 years. I didn't take a vacation until I was 28 years old. I was immersed in the car industry. And then I worked 6 days a week for the last 11 years of my career. I started as a salesperson. When I left, I owned the #1 Chevrolet store in Colorado. So I know the ins and outs of dealerships, of people, of management, of service, parts, body shop. I mean, everything that goes within a dealership, I know it intimately well. And that's really what separates me from everybody else out there.
So how do you translate that for folks that are listening? How do they say, okay, I'm believing, I'm in? What do they do for next steps for you? How do we get involved with what you're doing?
Well, if you're with the dealership, obviously that's kind of my lane. I do have some clients that are non-automotive because at the end of the day, sales is sales. It all translates. But if you just search on Facebook, Closing Big, that's how you're going to find me. It's the easiest way to find me.
So go to Facebook, Closing Big.
Closing Big.
We'll find you.
Yep.
What keeps you ahead of your competition?
I'm constantly changing. It's my only focus. I know some guys are in the training industry, but they're focused on 27 different things. All I focus on is sales. I had one of my clients call me up and say, "Hey, can you do a course on personal branding?" It's huge right now in every industry, but for salespeople to differentiate themselves and go, "Hey, I'm unique. Come buy from me." This personal branding piece. And so I'm shooting a course Monday and Tuesday of this week. I'll have it edited and uploaded in 2 to 3 weeks probably. And that's something unique about me. You can call me. I'm going to listen to you, talk to you, find out what your needs are, shoot the course for your people, and then have it up on the platform in weeks.
And again, that's keeping you ahead of the competition because nobody else is going to do that, right?
No, they're not.
I can tell you how to sell this and this interest rate and do this and that. No, it's, I hate to say it, they have to be, you're teaching them to be an influencer in their lane, right? Because again, you see it. Look, I see it. I have buddies who own dealerships in town, and they're doing these kind of inconsistent things, and they're trying because they see other successful people doing it, right? We get back to talking about what you want, doing it, and then guess what? They forgot to do every day.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, they're complaining because they don't have the six-pack.
See, a lot of guys do that, right? And it doesn't matter what it is, but you dip your toe in the water. And you go, oh, well, shoot, that didn't work. Well, you didn't give it a shot. Right. You didn't put the consistency.
You did 3 live Facebooks in the last month.
Yeah, that didn't work. Yeah.
Josh's fault, right?
Done with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you see your industry? Let's go into the future because you're well versed in this space of yours. Where do you see the future of this?
The training industry?
Yes.
I see a lot of dealerships, they need help with it. Typically what happens is at a dealership, in most businesses really, is you promote your best salesperson, who usually is very individualistic, not a team player. It's the reason why they're the best salesperson. Now you put them in a role with no training, and you go, here you go, now you're gonna manage 10 employees. And they go, whoa, that's a problem. So they're put into a position to almost immediately, they're set up for failure.
Yes.
And so hopefully what I see is a lot of dealerships embracing this training platform. You don't have to fly anybody in. You don't have to put them up in a hotel. You don't have to stop what's going on in your day for 3 or 4 hours to have somebody trained. You can have a fully online automated training portal that you can use it on your phone. You can do it while you're at home. You can use it as a team together in a meeting. There's an infinite amount of ways you can use it.
Well, I'd love to hear that because I think you're absolutely right. And that's ahead of the curve, right? I mean, most people still... It's funny, they want to fly somebody in and you got to pay for this and you got to do all of that. Yeah. And then the funny thing is I'm a big believer in the digital platforms. I have one myself. Is think about this. When that person leaves your dealership, your company, what do you get tomorrow? Mm-hmm. What are they going to have tomorrow?
Yeah. But there's a thing called the forgetfulness curve that after 30 days, you've forgotten 85% of what you've just learned. Yeah. And so all this in-person stuff is great, but it's not retained. And it's, again, about that repetition. It's all repetition, repetition, repetition. And that's where the online piece comes in, where you can do as much training as you want, when you want, how you want, and you're constantly getting it. A little slow drip every single day.
Well, I love it. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm excited. I feel like a smarter buyer now, and not only on the car side, but just in life in general. So Josh, thanks again for the time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.